GZ Truth News. It is October 31st, 2024. We have our very special guest, Dr. Jim Fetzer. Happy Halloween, everybody. We have a lot of interesting developments, as always, for the spooky fest. And Jim, it's all yours. Thank you very much.
Happy Halloween indeed. Well, Israel tried another attack on Iran, but it was a flop. Mcregor, who's just a brilliant, he's a graduate of West Point, is a brilliant military geopolitical analyst, has published a piece on thegovernmentreg.com and my blog, jameshfetzer.org. Lies cannot hide Israel's failed attack on Iran's air defense system. Despite all the government media lies, the U.S.-backed wars in Ukraine and Israel are both fast sinking into irreversible defeat, mired in unwinnable wars against Russia and Iran. Netanyahu's vow to obliterate Hamas has totally backfired, and every time IDF airstrikes savagely pulverized more schools, refugee tent camps, and hospitals, Hamas-resistant fighters continue defending their homeland, inflicting more Israeli casualties. Regarding Hezbollah and the U.S.-Israel desperation to ignite another illegal color revolution in Lebanon, or, for that matter, in the former Soviet state of Georgia, they fail. Bibi the Butcher will never be able to bring back those 60,000 displaced Israeli citizens to their northern Israeli homes. His campaign on both fronts are doomed to end like a cornered rat. His only move is to desperately widen the war, knowing that vassal USA will join his Zionist versus Islam Third World War. In deference to his Khazarian Luciferian masters, a butchered political life cannot last much longer, absent Armageddon. Thus, the government of Israel, like that of the United States, lie through their teeth 100% of the time, because no nation getting its ass kicked, going fast down in desperate ruin, can honestly publicly admit that to be the case. Face-saving deception is all they're left dishing out. Everything coming out of the West Mockingbird media today, be it Israel, US, or EU, particularly when it comes to wars, must be taken with a grain of salt, deemed not credible or trustworthy whatsoever. The annual Gallup poll results released last Friday found only 31% of U.S. respondents trust mainstream media at all, the lowest on historical record. The Jewish-owned and controlled fascist Western governments, married to their Jewish-owned fascist propagandist news media outlets, all five monopolizing the mainstream airwaves, are forbidden to ever admit that truth. By deliberate, diabolical design, every conflict and war, the City of London money changers financing creates its World War II, is intentionally lost on purpose. To this point, it's now nearly a full decade since Mcregor, wrote a global research article entitled "Why the United States Always Loses Its Wars," asserting in the opening paragraph, in violation of all ethical precepts and all international laws, a sole global superpower, citing its impunity through exceptionalism, hypocritically insists it can maintain its high moral ground in its relentless pursuit of regime change anywhere it so chooses on Earth. We are the global village bully that's hated by much of the world, and it's pure self-aggrandizing bullshit to perpetrate the myth that America is hated because of our freedom, another rhetorical brainwashing lie. We now live in a fascist totalitarian police state run by a globalized crime syndicate of the central banking cabal. As of last April, and this was in 2014, for a Princeton Northwestern study, the U.S. has officially been designated an oligarchy. The writing on the wall was more than clear 10 years ago. Likewise, today's two Western-backed wars in Ukraine and Middle East are two more in the latest losing proposition going down in flames. Join this ever-long list of disastrous U.S. foreign war defeats committed in our name by Maleficent intended design, central to centuries ago long plotted money changers' agenda to throw the West under the bus. Here we have Judge Napolitano speaking with Colonel Mcregor about the latest taking place.
But gold is. Colonel Mcregor, welcome here. Welcome here, my friend. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like to explore your thoughts in some detail on Israel, but before we do to Ukraine, there is some breaking news. However, Russian troops, according to President Putin himself at the BRICS summit in Kazan, have totally surrounded, you may have told us this a while ago, but now President Putin's acknowledging it, the troops that were engaged in the incursion, apparently some were Americans, in Kursk, and Russian, the main part of the Russian military, we understand, continues to move westward. What does this tell you? How much longer, no matter what the outcome of the election in America is next week, how much longer can Ukraine survive?
You know, that question is asked almost every week to everyone. And we always say essentially the same thing. As long as we continue to pump money into the governmental facade with Zelensky and his cabinet, as well as the senior leadership of the military, I guess they'll continue to pretend that they're actually fighting and have a chance to win the war. I mean, obviously that the war is finished. They're not going to win, not now, not ever. Russia has essentially crushed the resistance. But as long as they can find someone to go out there with a weapon and they can pay them, people will go. It's tragic.
So, Colonel, just about an hour ago, the Russian military spokesperson announced that an ex-Marine operating under an ex-American Marine, ex-American Special Forces operating under a Ukrainian flag was killed by Russian forces. They've identified this young man as Corey John Nawrocki, Nawrocki. There are pictures of the American military equipment found with him. There's his body, or a portion of the body, just the arm and the armpit, showing tattoos. Do those tattoos indicate to you that it's more likely than not that this person is an American ex-military?
Well, he's got a tattoo that says he was in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I don't know what the Marine connection is. It's not impossible that he could have served in the Marines and also the Army at some point. And I think this is probably genuine. It's tragic. He has what sounds like a Polish or potentially Ukrainian name, but I think probably Polish. And perhaps he was among many of the Special Operations Forces volunteers, people that had formerly served who were no longer on active duty, that were recruited to go over and fight for Ukraine. And I imagine that's how he ended up where he is.
Is there some prohibition on veterans fighting under the flag of a foreign country, even one supported by the United States?
Well, we had laws on the books about those things, but we have on the whole tended to turn a blind eye. We had the so-called Abraham Lincoln Brigade, which consisted of communists, American communists, who went to Spain during the Civil War to fight for the communist side, which was called itself Republicans, but they were actually a mix of communists, socialists, anarchists. Most of those men came back, and I don't know that their citizenship was revoked, although given the laws that were on the books at the time, they could have had their citizenship revoked. I guess we decided not to do it. And of course, we have many Americans who serve in the Israeli Defense Force. And once again, if you serve under a foreign flag or you vote in a foreign election, you can have your citizenship withdrawn. I wish we would enforce those laws, because I don't think American citizens should engage in this sort of behavior.
We had an American, Matt Van Dyke, who came on the show on a regular basis, was very proud of the fact that he was wearing a Ukrainian uniform and fighting under a Ukrainian flag, and then he disappeared. I understand he's still alive, but he's no longer doing podcast. Colonel, what do we know about the North Korean troops in Russia? Is it the case that North Koreans have for a long time trained in the far eastern part of Russia, where Russia and North Korea have a common border? Is it nothing more than that? Or have North Korean troops, as far as your sources are able to tell you, actually been transported to the area of the conflagration between Russia and Ukraine?
As far as I know, the answer to the second question is no. Clearly, the North Koreans have a long history with Russia. The North Korean forces that attacked us in 1950 were essentially trained, equipped, and put into action by Russian officers, Soviet officers at the time. This was Stalin's plan to rapidly overrun the peninsula. It almost worked, obviously. But other than that, the Koreans have not directly participated in events in Eastern Europe. Now, there were Koreans and Mongolians and Tatars in the Waffen-SS of the German Wehrmacht. There were also many inside the Soviet army. But the Koreans I'm talking about were people that already lived in Russia. The Koreans that we're discussing today from North Korea have been in Russia to be trained. That's all. There is no evidence. I can't find any evidence. I've talked to everybody I know. We see no evidence for any sort of Korean military force anywhere near Ukraine.
Interesting observation. And of course, it is the case that if an American serves in the military forces of another nation, he no longer retains his citizenship, though it may require a legal process, but you forfeit your citizenship by serving in the armed forces of another nation. Now, here we have a report about independents moving to Donald Trump. What I find intriguing about this particular photograph is those appear to be, on the one hand, a double of Donald Trump. Notice he has more silver hair. He's around for security purposes, but on the right, one of two doubles for Kamala Harris, one of whom speaks Spanish, by the way, giving a talk to Latinos. She broke out in Spanish, whereas Kamala herself doesn't know Spanish at all. But they have a problem with a candidate who's utterly witness, who never received a single vote for president in any campaign in this nation. And selecting her to be the nominee for the Democrat Party was a colossal blunder. Even the super liberal CNN can't deny things may not be looking so good for Harris. What CNN analyst Harry Enton has to say will likely be enough to send Democrats everywhere into panic mode from the blaze. What do we know about independents, right? Center of the electorate. You go last time around, Biden won those voters by 11 points. You look at September 2024, a month ago, Kamala was up 5 points. Look now, she's only up by 2 among this key bloc, center of the electorate, down 9 from where Biden was at the end of 2020. So what's going on in those key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes, that blue wall, right? Joe Biden last time around won him by 5 over Trump. Look where we are today. This is the type of movement Trump likes to see in the center of the electorate, up by a point. Now, of course, that's within the margin of error, but again, it's the movement, it's the trend. Harris has claimed she'll bring change if she wins the election. However, she's had 4 years to bring about change as second in command in the Biden admin, and she's failed to do it. Perhaps independent voters are starting to realize that if Harris wins, it'll only be 4 more years of the same. Harris has essentially campaigned by constantly bashing Trump, unable to campaign on the horrendously woke policy she and Biden have had in place. Harris is hoping she'll essentially win just because she isn't Trump. Unfortunately, independent voters have little interest in attacks on Trump. Instead, they want to hear what specific policy the candidate will put in place to fix the issues facing America today. Independent voters see just how bad life has gotten in Biden-Harris admin. The economy is in shambles. Inflation has skyrocketed. Millions of illegals have flooded our border. Meanwhile, millions of honest-to-God, real American citizens are struggling just to put food on the table. There are two other analysts, Michael Schellenberger and Alex Gutentag, calling it an epical realignment of American politics, saying toxic femininity and wokeism are turning the tide in Trump's favor. Just a few minutes ago, a Kamala Harris victory seemed near inevitable. Today, it seems unlikely. Whatever happened November 5th, toxic feminism and wokeism are driving men, Jews, billionaires, Muslims away from the Democrats. We're on the cusp of an epical political realignment, no doubt reinforced by Trump's wonderful interview with Joe Rogan. In an article in Public, Schellenberger and Gutentag said Trump is seeing increased support from that very list I identified. Among the indicators that political tides are turning is growing public support for Trump's immigration plans, which has forced Harris to move back toward the center. They point out that in under 24 hours, more than 20 million people viewed Joe Rogan's 3-hour interview with Trump, where taboo subjects like the JFK files were discussed. They point out Harris struggled to clearly answer a question put to her in a CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper. Meanwhile, Harris's closing argument is why she should be elected come off as desperation, as she devolves into calling Trump a fascist and Hitler sympathizer. The best evidence this claim is not being taken seriously can be seen in the growing number of Black, Latino, and young male voters telling pollsters they'll be voting for Trump in larger numbers than in 2020. Trump has also drawn endorsement from Arab and Muslim leaders and has narrowed Harris's lead among Jewish voters. They also mentioned Trump's growing support among the elite class, including billionaires like Elon Musk and Bill Ackman, many of whom were either Democrats or previously voted for Biden. One reason they give for the growing rejection of Harris is a populist backlash against the mainstream media at a time when public concerns over free speech are second only to those about immigration. The journalists concede that next week's election could still go either way, but they also note that even if Harris were to win, she would not have a mandate to pursue her progressive agenda. And I'll just add, the only way she can win is by cheating. Schellenberger again takes that 2024 election may go down in history as having demonstrated a significant realignment of the electorate. Republican gains and maintain a majority by capturing greater support from those that were driven away from the Democrats by woke policies. Meanwhile, 50 million Americans have already voted. More than 500,000 have cast their votes in Minnesota alone. Here's Real Clear Politics, which deals with averages of polls and tends to be highly reliable, reflecting how the popularity has grown and grown for the Republicans and was initially promising for the Democrats, but then they had a collapse. And now Trump is surging, Kamala is falling. Thus, we had a mega rally in New York City. Trump supporters filled Madison Square Garden. The mega movement stormed the heart of liberal New York City at a recent rally in Madison Square Garden, showcasing the undeterred support for President Trump. Despite the blue reputation of the city, the event demonstrated Trump's influence transcends political lines, turning the iconic arena into a sea of red. Even in the shadow of Democrat strongholds, the spirit of American conservatism was shining bright. There was a comedian there who'd apparently been partially vetted. Joe Rogan apparently was in, who made a joke about Puerto Rico regarding to it as something like a floating heap of garbage, that was very inappropriate. I believe it was deliberate in order to tarnish the event so that Democrats would have something to complain about. And they've sought to do it. Kamala sought to capitalize on Puerto Rico, but then her own past scandal came out. When she went to Puerto Rico after hurricane damage and met a group that was chanting, and she was just clapping and going along, but what they were chanting was basically, "What are you doing here? Why aren't you helping me?" But because of her ignorance of Spanish, she thought initially they were welcoming her until an aide explained what they were saying, in response to which she just stood there stone-faced and without expression. Meanwhile, even Joe Biden has got in the act very mistakenly.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's
Notice he said there, the only garbage he sees out there is Trump supporters. So what did Trump do brilliantly? He got himself a trash truck. Watch this.
They see me rolling, they hating, and trying to kiss me riding dirty.
Yo, what's up, guys? Your boy Benny. Less than 24 hours after Joe Biden called 250 million Americans garbage, Donald Trump is in a trash truck. This is immaculate. Look at this image. This is not AI. This is President Trump wearing a orange vest, walking out to a trash truck. Now, we have just left an event where we drove around in a trash truck and emptied literal garbage with Vivek Ramaswamy. We're in North Carolina. And while this was happening, little did we know the president was going to be doing the same thing. Here's the setup. After Joe Biden's incredibly offensive, totally disqualifying comments, Kamala Harris should resign because of these comments. Donald Trump had a trash truck pull up to his motorcade today in Wisconsin. Now, everybody thought maybe that's just like the truck being part of the motorcade. Ha, 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 it has a Trump sign on it. Nope. First thing that happens is we get this video from Donald Trump wearing a orange hazard vest.
Hello, everybody. This is Donald Trump, and 250 million people are not garbage.
Then we start getting these incredible photographs of Donald Trump walking off his plane and getting into the physical trash truck. Then Donald Trump does a press conference inside the trash truck. Oh, man, it's too good. Look at these photos. These photos are amazing. The Trump trash truck press conference, I can't believe I'm saying this, is even better than the drive-through window at McDonald's. I know. I've told you that is my single favorite campaign event in the history of American politics. It might be, I'm going to have to think about it. It might be defeated by Donald Trump doing this press conference from the trash truck. It starts off with this comment, "How you like my trash truck, boys? Thanks, Joe Biden."
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
And then Donald Trump just goes full epic mode. CNN actually had to break from live broadcasting to go cover Trump in a trash truck doing a press conference. Okay, so here's CNN breaking from their live broadcast to cover President Trump.
Trump is answering some questions from reporters.
Joe Biden, to make that statement, it's really a disgrace. I don't think they'll have to be used. I think we're going to have a big victory. And I think 250 million people in this country are going to be very happy because we're going to bring the country back. We're a nation in decline, very, very serious decline. And we're going to bring our country back.
Did you know that Elon Musk was in close contact with President Bush? Did you know about this? Did you know about Elon Musk's calls and close communication?
No, I don't know. Elon is a great guy. He's one of our geniuses, and we have to protect our geniuses. We have to take care of our geniuses. There aren't too many of them. Yes, please. I love Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico loves me. I don't know anything about a comedian. I love Puerto Rico. Nobody's done more for Puerto Rico than me. I took care of them when they had the big hurricanes. And nobody gets along better with Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people than me. They love me and I love them. Go ahead, Mr. President. I don't know anything about the comedian. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him. I heard he made a statement, but it was just a statement that he made. He's a comedian. What can I tell you? I know nothing about him. I don't know why he's there. You put comedians up, and I guess he went on earlier in the show. I don't know who he is. I don't know, but I think he's a terrific guy. I think he was treated very unfairly.
Mr. President, you've been talking about Democrats cheating. Do you imagine any circumstances under which you would be defeated but not say that the election was stolen?
If it was a corrupt election, that could happen. But so far, we're doing pretty well. They found a lot of smaller things in Pennsylvania, as you know, and I think they've been corrupted and taken care of. They were corrupt. They were corrupted, but I think it's been taken care of.
Well, there's going to be more and more. But get this, Breitbart. The price of garbage is up 18.5% under Biden-Harris. The prices American pay for garbage collection have jumped 18.5% since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris entered the White House, according to data from the U.S. Department of Labor. Meanwhile, the worst Nazi rally ever. I made my popcorn and settled in for the spectacle, reported Ken LaCourte. Never in my life had I witnessed an honest-to-goodness Nazi rally except in dusty old newsreels. What, this one? Streaming live in color and in English? I kept a German-English dictionary nearby just in case. Democrats set the stage perfectly. Kamala finally said something I could understand. Trump was a fascist. He would finally emerge from the shadows, literally, following an infamous pre-war Nazi confab in the same building. Hillary Clinton, everyone to fib, solemnly informed us that Trump was actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally of 1939. Historian and part-time psychic Tim Walsa agreed. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they are doing there. The media confirmed it, of course, and my heart almost jumped when I got the first glimpse of MSNBC's Nazi footage interspersed into their news coverage. Yes, I'm still not sure how those powerful entities knew what would happen before the rally even started. But that must be why they're the ones with money and power, why they're paid the big bucks. Then came confusion when I saw Jews outside the venue. They weren't screaming and protesting, but waiting to get in and singing. Was this some type of fifth column sneaking in to take down the rally from the inside? I mean, after that whole exploding pager operation, you can't trust anybody. Inside, more Jews, happy ones, and Israeli flags waving proudly. Just wait, Ken, I told myself. Maybe we'll see a live pogrom, and those flags will be burned by the screaming crowd, kind of like Harvard. Then, more weirdness, as the rally kicked off on the wrong jackboot. The national anthem was belted out by a black woman. I frantically checked Twitter for anyone decoding how this could be a white supremacist signal. Disappointed at missing the hidden messages, I pledged to watch Rachel Maddow later to crack the code. I soon found myself whistling 40 chess as I waited for the first speaker. And then my confusion became disappointment. Representative Elise Stefanik spoke first. Within 5 minutes, she called Israel our most precious ally and complained about Kamala not giving that ally proper support. WTF? Was this Beyonce all over again? Quite frankly, it was all downhill from there. Where were the torchlit processions, the synchronized goose stepping, even one tiny "Hail Trump"? The whole event catered to normies. Trump and his crew talked about cheaper groceries, safer street, keeping us out of wars. You know, the usual boring stuff. For anyone expecting a fascist spectacle, it was an epic letdown. Not a single torch was lit. Not one goose was stamped. There aren't many hills that I'll die on, but this is one. It was the worst Nazi rally ever. But they're not giving up. Look at this election fraud. 114,545 voters cast, 279,113 ballots across the battleground state of Michigan. How is it that 114,545 voters cast 279,113 ballots from multiple addresses across the state? The Democrats are stealing it right before our very eyes, and no one can or will do anything about it. Matthew De Perone is reporting, after reviewing the qualified voter file of votes actually cast as of yesterday, October 29th, the database identifies 114,545 Michigan voters who have cast 279,113 ballots from multiple addresses across the state. This results in 164,568 excess ballots as of October 29. Notice that's more excise ballots than there were actually voters who cast them. And here they have the qualified, they have done their research, they have the proof. This is what's happening in Michigan. And I have no doubt many other states will not be far behind them. Meanwhile, ABC goofs up, broadcast results of the election in a state where Kamala wins. Look at it right there. Harris, 52%, with 3,293,712 versus Trump, 47. 2,997,793 votes with 100% tabulated. Yeah, that's how it's going to play out in that state. Thus, 10 out of 10 undocumented gang members agree we're voting for Kamala. When we're not capturing and ripping up rival gang members with a chainsaw, sex trafficking minor children, or peddling fentanyl-laced drugs to suburban teens, or cheerfully spreading the word about all the wondrous things a Harris presidency would mean for America. Meanwhile, and this is the real bottom line, Trump does not need to beat Harris. Trump needs to beat the election fraud. That's where we are. That's what's going on in America today. Meanwhile, Archbishop Vigano has posted an open letter to American Catholics on the eve of the election. This is magnificent. Dear faithful American Catholics, I am addressing all of you a few days before the presidential election that will call millions of American citizens to the polls. Even in conditions of relative normality, the exercise of the vote is your moral duty, through which you cooperate in the first person in choosing the person who will lead the nation for the next 4 years. But in this coming electoral round, just as in 2020, and indeed much more so, you are not simply called to choose between two candidates who happen to be on different political sides, but who both nevertheless have the common good at heart in compliance with the Constitution and the law. No. In this election, you must choose between two radically opposed ways of conceiving the government of your nation. You are called to choose between democracy and dictatorship, between freedom and slavery. On the one side, we have candidate Donald J. Trump, who, despite serious problems in his positions, especially in the matter of abortion and assisted procreation, has as his objective the common good and the protection of the fundamental freedoms of citizens. In Donald Trump's America, every Catholic can practice their faith and educate their children in it without interference from the state. On the other, We have a candidate in a party that promotes everything that directly opposes the faith and morals of the Catholic Church. In Kamala Harris's America, Catholics, but also Protestants, are considered fundamentalists to be marginalized and eliminated, and their children are considered the property of the state, which arrogates unto itself the right to lead them astray from an early age in both body and soul. Trump's America can become great and prosperous again. Harris's America is destined for invasion and for moral, social, and economic destruction, the most ferocious dictatorship. Look at your country. Your cities have become dumps filled with derelicts and criminal drug dealers and addict prostitutes and robbers. Your schools are dens of indoctrination and corruption from kindergarten onward. In your courts, criminals are acquitted, innocents are imprisoned. New ideological crimes are prosecuted, while illegality is tolerated and encouraged. In your hospitals, multinational corporations rule, and you are their guinea pig to be exterminated or made chronically ill, so you will be their perpetual clients. Farmers, ranchers, fishermen are prosecuted or forced to fail, while the land is grabbed by unscrupulous corporations who transform it into endless photovoltaic systems and wind turbines to power their data centers and server farms, where they collect all your data, your movements, your purchases, and your political preferences. They have gone so far as to tamper with the climate by means of sophisticated geoengineering operations and devastating arson in order to make the global warming fraud credible and impose a green transition, which increase the cost of energy and electric cars and scooters. And all this is done based on evidence that consists of lies without any scientific proof, but which are propagated through the servile collaboration of the regime media, ever ready to label any dissenters as conspiracy theorists. But what until yesterday was dismissed as a result of conspiracy theories is now admitted by the government itself. They throw away your sunlight, they poison you by seeding the clouds, they overwhelm your villages and your fields with deadly hurricanes, they kill your livestock, dry up your crops with induced droughts and devastating fires. They aim to control the entire food sector, to force you to eat only what they make available to you. This is what Agenda 2030 calls for, which has been imposed without any vote by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. In these 4 disastrous years of the Biden-Harris administration, we have had a puppet in the White House and a corrupt and incompetent vice president who has never stopped lying and deceiving voters about her past and her future. Power is managed by the criminal deep state, whose names and faces we now know, that is responsible for the destruction of your great nation. And to ensure that the crisis is endless, new war scenarios are continually opening up in conflicts no one actually wants, except for those who make enormous profits from them, sacrificing human lives and compromising international stability. You have seen what the Democrats, it is the woke far left, have been capable of in 4 years. Imagine what they'll be able to do if, instead of Biden's numerous stand-ins, his vice president is elected in the most scandalous and unimaginable fraud, with her entourage of LGBTQ plus ministers, religiously woke, sold out to China or the World Economic Forum, sponsored by George Soros and Bill Gates, manipulated by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. At that point, dear American Catholics, you'll not only have to go to a different rally, as Kamala would like, in order to say Christ is the Lord, because saying that will be considered hate speech, praying in front of an abortion clinic, an act of terrorism. Do not think that these are remote hypotheses. Wherever the woke left takes power, it establishes the most vicious anti-human and anti-Christian dictatorship that humanity has ever known. And we know that every time the left has come to power, it has never left through democratic means. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are not talking about two visions that are a bit different, but still part of the normal political back and forth. No. We are talking about two diametrically opposed and irreconcilable worlds in which Trump fights against a deep state and is committed to freeing America from its tentacle group. On the opposite side, we have a corrupt and blackmailed candidate, an organic part of the deep state, who acts as a puppet in the hands of warmongers like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, of self-proclaimed philanthropists like the criminals George Soros and Klaus Schwab, or of characters like Jeffrey Epstein and Sean Combs. The program is that of the global left, the World Economic Forum, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and ultimately the program of Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. Their agenda is dictated by the financial oligarchy that controls humanity to the detriment of the people. An elite that operates not only in the United States, but also in Canada, Australia, Europe, wherever politics is held hostage by their investment funds and their pseudo-humanitarian organizations dedicated to the obliteration of Western civilization. I gotta say, it's a stunning statement the bishop has given us. I admire the man beyond words, and I'm very grateful to you to have the opportunity to share his words, even if those were the only words conveyed today to those who are in your audience. They need to understand the profundity of the decision we're making, but which it appears is going to be made for us by benevolent forces who are already at work, eagerly stealing the election and making no pretense it's not taking place before our very eyes. The question thus becomes, what can we do about it?
It's a great question, Jim. And as sad as it is, all of that was very beautifully said. We thank you for all of that. For you, Archbishop Vigano, Judge Napolitano, Colonel Mcregor. I mean, we have a lot of great people doing the best they can here. And as General Patton said, you know, if a man does his best, what else is there? So we're all doing our best here. And I just want to say, everybody, please check out jameshfetzer.org and givesendgo.org/funding Fetzer. And, you know, thank you very much, Jim. We'll keep on going and see what we're doing. And pretty sure Donny Boy has it in the bag, but we're going to find out in time.
In an honest election, it would be a landslide. He'd probably take 48 of the states. In 2020, by my estimate, he had 100 million plus votes, with Biden 37, and they stole that one before, which has emboldened them to attempt it again. My suspicion, if they do steal the election, we'll have 100,000 Americans peacefully protesting in Washington, D.C., that they will unleash the American military to fire on the American people, though some will shoot the officers issuing the illegal order, and it'll be game on. Historically, in ancient Greece, for example, the primary cause of revolutions in the cities was stolen elections. It's coming here to America, I fear.
Well, let's hope for the best, and we'll continue on and hope for the best and keep our chins up. So thank you, Jim, and let's do this soon enough, and hopefully everything will go well.
My great pleasure.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.